right, so today we're here to talk about developments happening in Tallahassee. So one thing I found is that there's a lot of information on the internet talking about Florida, talking about the South, just talking about a lot of places in general, but I haven't really found much information specifically talking about developments in Tallahassee, right? And it's very, very important to kind of get in on that because Tallahassee is the capital city of Florida and a lot of things are changing in the city. So I know like this year, like at homecoming, right? A lot of people came back. They missed homecoming in 2020 due to COVID and whatnot. And they came back and they were just like, wow, this place looks different, right? Because they saw new buildings they never saw before. They saw a lot of other things that they never saw, right? I mean, Gain Street, a lot of stuff in Railroad Square, a lot of places around campus, FAMU Way. It looks totally different from what it did like 5 years ago. So if you haven't been to Tallahassee in 5, maybe 10 years, you may not even recognize the place when you get here. You might get lost when you come up near campus, right? So what I'm trying to do today is kind of just talk about what's happening and explain to everyone why they really need to start thinking about Tallahassee as a place to invest. In particular, people who have some sort of ties to Tallahassee, whether it be through FAMU, whether it be through Florida State or TCC, or being from here with your family. It's a great place that I think people should think about and just understand what's happening, right? So first things first, just to kind of give a little bit of background about Tallahassee, it's the capital of the state of Florida. As we all know, Florida is the third largest state in America. So, a huge economy, lots of money coming through Tallahassee. Every year, all the state legislatures come up here for session, a lot of other things. But for a long time, it's primarily just been a government town and a university town. So here you have Florida A&M University, which I'm repping, of course. You have Florida State University, which I'm also an alum, so I can rep them a little bit too. And then Tallahassee Community College. But so between those three schools, you have about 60,000 plus college students here. So the demographics of kind of like the population is very unique because you have, a local population and you have a huge student population here, and that creates a very unique synergy within the city. So in essence, at some points, the city can kind of be somewhat of a bedroom town where people come here and go to school, go home, or leave and things like that. But what's happening is that's going to start changing, right? So primarily before, the only job opportunities and the only thing kind of pathway to career opportunities were, to go to school, maybe go work at one of the universities, maybe work for the state or work for the local government or something like that. But now you're starting to have big corporations come in, right? So now you have Amazon opening not one, but 2 factories here in Tallahassee, right? And that's really huge. I don't think people really realize that because, with Tallahassee being a government town, it's somewhat very recession resistant, right? Because, universities, we saw during the pandemic, people who worked at the universities were still, for the most part, able to keep their jobs. People who work for the state and the city were able to keep their jobs. So we didn't have as much economic damage in Tallahassee as some other places saw. Sure, there was a lot of problems and a lot of issues during the pandemic, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been, and it's certainly not as bad as it was in other places. So what you had is, a lot of people with very, very steady employment. However, those jobs are typically not that high paying jobs, and particularly not initially when you come out of school, right? So a lot of people, they go and work for the state, they work for the city, and their initial, or maybe they become teachers or something like that, their initial pay, is good pay, but it's not, executive level pay like you can make in Atlanta or Miami or Orlando, other places like that. So what happens is in Tallahassee, a lot of young professionals end up moving, right? Because they're like, okay, why would I stay in Tallahassee and make, 40 grand a year or so when I could be doing the same thing, making 70 grand in Atlanta or, Houston or other places like that, right? But now with Amazon coming, now you're going to possibly have those type of jobs, right? So you're going to have the type of jobs where people can make a good living, earn high, be a high income earner at a young age. And then also you can kind of bounce back and forth in between the government sector and also the private sector. And another thing that I think what will be good as well is that having those private sector jobs will put competition on the public sector jobs, right? So now that the state knows that, hey, if I don't pay these people, they're going to leave and go to Amazon, or they're going to leave and go to, whatever company. Now it's a little bit of pressure, right? So now they say, okay, well, I got to kind of, raise the pay a little bit. So, in any market, right, you want competition, right? Competition in the labor market, competition in the employment market. That's always good generally speaking, that's always good, right? So as a result of that, a lot of people are seeing that, okay, there's a lot of opportunity here. So just run down what's been happening all over Florida. most people are familiar with like South Florida, Miami. So there's been tons and tons of investments there over the last, 20 or 30 years. I'm really longer than that, but just talking about recent investment, there's been tons, right? So we've seen parts of Miami that were pretty much very underdeveloped, like Overtown, Liberty City, some of the other areas, historically black areas, are historically, underdeveloped areas, Little Haiti. I mean, you could just name up and down the line. People who are from Miami know those areas, right? Where people weren't really investing, right? And now you see big apartments come in there, big things come in there, right? Because now you pretty much run out of space down there, right? So now people are literally willing to live in any part of Miami. So it doesn't matter where your house is in Miami is valuable because of space, right? Now that same thing has happened. You go up into Broward, you go up into Palm Beach County. I mean, really anywhere in the southern Florida, kind of tri-county area. You're seeing tons and tons of investment, right? So then people say, well, you know what? Okay, Miami's getting too expensive. It's not, the profits aren't really there anymore. Let's go to Orlando and Tampa, right? Now look what's happening in Orlando and Tampa. Anybody who lives in Orlando and Tampa, like, wow, the prices of everything have like doubled and tripled over the last couple of years, right? So now, guess what people are doing? Now they're going to Jacksonville, right? So anyone who lives in Jacksonville will also tell you the exact same thing, right? They're like, wow, a lot of parts of town that people weren't investing in, they weren't doing anything in. Now people are coming to Jacksonville and wanting to invest. Big institutional investors are coming here wanting to invest. And what's going to happen is that same thing is going to end up coming in Tallahassee, right? Tallahassee is the last cheap, underdeveloped major city in the state of Florida, right? And it also happens to be the capital city with a very, very, very solid employment base, right? So it's a very safe place to invest. That's kind of what the point I'm trying to get at, right? You have people who work for universities, people who work for the state. I mean, that's good money, right? People who work for the federal government. Then you have private sector coming in as well. So that's why a lot of people feel very safe in investing here. And I think that's why you're going to see a lot more coming soon. So, so basically saying all this to say, there's so much stuff happening that even signals the parts of town where it's going to come, right? So, we talked about Tallahassee just kind of in general, but the real emphasis of the investment is really coming into the southern side of Tallahassee, right? So, historically, Tallahassee has been a segregated city. So the majority of the, kind of wealthier, more affluent neighborhoods within the city are in the north side, right? However, in the south side, kind of historically segregated, obviously some different neighborhoods here and there. And there's been a real lack of investment. But over the last 5 or so years, there have been hundreds of millions of dollars being invested. And there's actually over $1 billion worth of projects in the pipeline coming to the south side of Tallahassee, right? So let me just name a couple projects, right? So you had Cascade Park, right? So just the park being developed, that's one thing. Then you had a hotel being developed there. You have a hotel, you have offices, and you also have apartments. That's all in Cascade Park. Right next to Cascade Park is a new development called Somo Walls, right? Where you're going to have, restaurants, kind of like a Wynwood style vibe right next to that, right? So that's another one. That's all right in the same little area. Then you have FAMU Way, you have Lake Anita Park, which is being developed right there. They're building that up, a lot of other things. You have the Railroad Square. You have all those new hotels on Gain Street. You have all those new apartments on Gain Street. Florida State is moving their College of Business on Gain Street. There's just so many other things, right? That's just a few, right? There's a huge, huge project coming to make Lake Bradford effectively like Tennessee Street. It's called the Airport Gateway Project. There's just so many things. A new fire station is coming to this side of town. I could just go on and on and on and on and on and on and on, right? And, when I talk about this, people are like, okay, all that's great, but what do I do, right? What I'm saying is that's why you need to invest, right? So if you own properties in these neighborhoods, if you know people who own properties in the neighborhood, or if you're a real estate investor, just in general, these are great areas to be buying properties within because they're so undervalued, right? So I'll just use one example, right? I believe it's the 32310 area code or zip code in Tallahassee, right? I want to say the average median house in Tallahassee in general is about 300,000, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less. But in that particular zip code, it's about 150, right? So you're talking about, basically half the value, right? And in some areas, even like if you go a couple streets over, like I remember one time I was telling one of my friends, there was a property, I think it was in Frenchtown. It was the exact same square footage, exact same everything, year built everything as a property that was quote unquote in Midtown, but it was like literally like 4 blocks away. The one was selling for 75,000. The other was selling for 219,000. Right? So 3 or 4 blocks away, same size, same everything, and over $100,000 difference in price. What I'm saying is that is not going to continue to happen, right? Over time, the markets are going to correct themselves and they're going to become more perfected, right? So that's why, as an investor, it's important to be able to get in and to be able to profit or benefit from that upswing in prices, right? There's a lot of issues now, and I'm gonna have a whole nother podcast episode where I talk about why prices of housing are going up so fast, and talking about why there's really not much that can be done about it. But today I just really want to encourage people to take action, right? So a lot of people, when they come back, they're like, wow, they're just so excited to see everything, and they really just don't know what to do. So what should you do? So what I advise you to do is to connect with people who are local in Tallahassee investing, right? A lot of people who are real estate professionals. If you're a real estate professional, one thing you always respect is local knowledge, right? Local expertise. Real estate is a very local game. Now, because of like the internet, people just talk about internet, like real estate very generally, like, oh, like it could work anywhere, anywhere. Every city is different. And even within every single city, each neighborhood is different. It's very, 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 very specific to that area. I mean, you could even say one side of a street or one part of a street versus another part of the street are different, right? I mean, everyone knows, you go in your hometown, like, okay, yeah, this neighborhood is good, but that one is not so good. Like, this area is good, but you go to that other street, it's not good. You see what I'm saying? Even within the same neighborhood, it's certain little areas and whatnot. So what I'm saying is, that's why it's important to work with local people, local experts, and people who are doing business in that city on a day-to-day basis, because they know what's in the pipeline, right? So the advantage of being a local expert and working with a local expert is they know what's there, they know what's coming before it comes. And that's what allows you to be able to get in before the prices go up. Because once all this stuff is built, believe me, them prices are going up, right? So if you want to be able to get in before that, it's important to work with local investors, to talk to people who are there, and really, make very informed, wise decisions with your funds. So we'll go ahead and stop for today. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to, shoot me a message, drop something in the chat, make a comment, hit me up on Instagram, whatever way you want to contact me, and I'll be glad to answer your questions.